Today I'm speaking about my first impressions of the photos I took recently with the Olympus Mju II and a roll of Kodak Gold 200. As I'd mentioned before, that was the first time in a long time that I took pictures with a film camera. And I was quite interested to see what the photos would look like once I scan them and import them into my computer. So I've shown some of these pictures in my recent videos, but I thought it might be interesting to specifically go through the photos and so I can tell you what my thoughts are about that. I hope you find this interesting, and let's dive into this and look into it together. So to start with, I brought the roll of film to a local shop first, and the first shop where I went to said, "What is this?" As if they'd never seen a roll of film, even though on the internet they say they're dealing with it. And they said, "Oh, we can do it, we can deal with this, it's going to take 2 weeks." And I was like, 2 weeks? Honestly, I didn't like that attitude at all. So I walked away and thought I wouldn't find anyone to help me out with this. And then literally in front of my car where I was parking, I saw like a corner shop, and they were amazing. So they were really friendly and said they'll do it within 48 hours. And yeah, I received my roll of film back. I found it quite interesting that the film that I had developed was called Kodak Gold 200, and that shop gave it back to me in these film sleeves that says Fujifilm, which is not a problem at all. I mean, they don't have as much material anymore that they can match up Fuji with Kodak, etc. But I thought it's quite funny, you know, that I get my film back in a Fujifilm kind of sleeve. This is what it looked like when I first scanned my film. I mean, most of you probably know what negative films look like, negative color film that is. I struggled with this in the past already when I had tried to get negative film into my computer and then invert it. It never really worked out in Lightroom. I tried to just invert it or like use the line curve to do some kind of inversion. It worked all right with black and white film, but definitely not with color negative film. It just looks really weird, and this orange cast just wouldn't go away. Then I tried some things in Photoshop, and it just looked awful. So I kind of gave up on that and just started working mainly with my old slides, you know, the transparent slides that I had from the past, and kind of forgot about my negatives. So now recently when I looked into this again, I heard that now there were really amazing plugins that you could use for doing this conversion. I used a plugin called Negative Lab Pro, which works really well with Lightroom, directly in Lightroom, so you don't even need to export or go into Photoshop or anything. You can just work straight in Lightroom, and I find that absolutely amazing. So here I had this negative. I just applied some color balance by clicking on the side of the film strip, and that kind of took the orange hue a little bit away already, the orange cast I mean. And then after that I went into Negative Lab Pro, and I was able to very quickly get to something much better. So this is what happened when I converted the negative to what's called a positive Negative Lab Pro, and this is, yeah, it looks really quite good. I'm happy with this. I can certainly see the film look. I don't know about you, but I had kind of like a bit like this moment where I was reminded of all these old photos and that look that we used to have. Because for a while, to be honest, I thought it's a little bit overhyped, this whole thing about film and analog photography, before I tried it myself, and there's just something magical, you know, holding the film, scanning it, getting it into your system, and then finally seeing it on your screen again. And it's pretty cool. Now I just took this photo here as kind of a joke. If you watched my old video where I was unpacking my Olympus Mju II, you might have seen how I said, and now I'm going to take a picture of you. Well, that's exactly the moment where I was speaking to, and this is what it looks like when I'm making my YouTube videos. I've got the Sony a7 IV with the big microphone on top. Yeah, when I speak to you, I'm speaking into a lens here. It's kind of weird, but that's what it is. So anyway, I thought my first photo with this Olympus film camera is going to be a setup of a really digital kind of system. I had a bit of fun at the end of the video after having talked to the camera for a while and was walking around my garden taking pictures of these cosmos flowers. It's maybe not the perfect setup for that kind of thing. The Olympus Mju II is a rangefinder camera with which you can very easily snap pictures, take quick shots, but I wouldn't say it's ideal for taking pictures of flowers. Maybe if it's all in the same focal plane, it might work. In other cases, I ran into some troubles. Some of the photos ended up being quite nice, like this one. I quite like it. I find that the flower against the sky looks quite subtle. These were quite nice, but it didn't always work out well when I was taking photos of the flowers, because you can't see what's in focus and you can't change anything manually. You just click on it and that's it, and then you have to develop and see what happens. This is typically what happened with a lot of these photos. The camera just automatically saw the grass on the ground, focused on that, and that was it, and I had no idea that was happening. So I took quite a few photos of my cosmos flowers thinking, oh, that looks pretty, that's amazing, and then it was all just blurry. And normally I wouldn't show you these photos, but I thought it might be interesting for some of you to not just see what worked out well, but to see the issues that I ran into, the problems. So I had 36 photos, but certainly not 36 usable photos. And you learn from your mistakes. Like, I'm not going to carry on taking pictures of really small flowers with grass in the background now, because I know that most of the time they will probably end up being blurry. So then I took a weird selfie of myself. I'm still speaking about what didn't really work out that much, just to show you the reality of what works and what doesn't work. I took this picture and I really don't like it. Maybe you noticed that for that first video I was using a big powerful video light, and I'm not sure if it was the mixture, this mix of the artificial light with its color temperature and the daylight that were kind of confusing the Olympus Mju II, the film camera. Maybe more like the film itself, that it was confusing the film, but I really don't like what it did to my face. Around here we live close to the mountains, there's a lot of agriculture going on, so they were showing these cows off at a local fair, and just took a couple of pictures while we were walking past. Personally, I don't know anything or very much about that industry, but thought I would just do that. And then every year they also show off these really old tractors, which are quite interesting. They've got these strong colors, and I thought it might be interesting to see what it does. Here they had these tractors, and they had this orange tractor that was standing there. Frankly, I really like the way the orange looks on that picture. Not so much of a fan of the sign behind the tractor, but then on the other side you could argue that there's some kind of story going on where they put the tractor right in front of the no parking sign. I don't know. To be honest, I didn't do that on purpose. And the kangaroo. No, there's a small story behind the kangaroo. I know this picture doesn't look like the best picture ever, but I wanted to include it. One in order to show you that not everything will work out realistically, and two, to tell you that little story. The day before I had gone to, I think you call it a garage sale in the English-speaking countries here in our region, and we were walking around and buying some presents, trying not to get too many. Just towards the end, before we left, my children found this kangaroo, quite a big one, like this. And they really loved it, so they decided to buy it with their own money, and we took it home. And as I was walking around taking pictures, they said, oh, we really need to take a picture of the kangaroo sitting in our garden. So here we go. I don't know if there are any parents here watching, but I'm sure you know what it's like. Moving on, we went for a walk in a nearby beautiful river close to our house here. And I recently read that William Turner actually painted one of his famous works of art very close to this place. I think it's called Bonneville. I just wanted to take a picture from a very similar place, looking towards these mountains, which I know so well because this is where I live and where I spend a lot of my time. Yeah, this is the negative of this picture. It's this view of the mountains with the river in the foreground and these forests which have not quite started to turn the colors towards the autumn hues, but it's something subtle. I like the sky. It's just this peaceful nature scene which I appreciate so much. Oh yeah, one last tractor photo where I was just goofing around. So this photo I took during one of my last videos when I was speaking about my first impression of the Olympus Mju II, where I randomly put my umbrella in between these trees. And I'm a bit surprised about how it came out. The trees are way more brown and warm than I saw them. But I guess that's part of the way the film interpreted the light at that moment. Here you can see the trees where I put my umbrella on. And yeah, film definitely is quite subjective, I would say. I don't know if you can say subjective for film, but it doesn't come out as consistently as with digital, where you really have a good idea what things are going to look like. That's part of why I'm interested in film, the surprise and how things can turn out quite differently from time to time. Then while I was going for a walk, I spotted this dead tree, which is unfortunately something that I've noticed quite a lot this summer, that I think that nature is really starting to feel the climate change, and I've noticed how some trees are starting to die, unfortunately. So in this case I noticed this trunk which was in the middle between these other trees which were still very well and alive, and I just had to take a picture because of the contrast between those. I quite like the way it came out. Then I took a couple of pictures also against the sun directly, so that these trees were kind of backlit. In this case it turned out quite well, and I think it's alright. I quite like the result. In another case where I pointed the Mju II directly towards the sun, it came out really not nice at all. Backlit with the Olympus Mju II, or maybe film cameras in general, is a little bit hit and miss, I have to say, so far. So here we have another view of the river with the mountains in the background. I did a little bit more adjustment on this one, so this is not just a pure conversion in Negative Lab Pro, but the only thing that I still like to do is a little bit of what's called dodge and burn, where you take some shadows, make them a little bit stronger in some parts of the image, and kind of play with the light a little bit. In the end, the lens, whether it's digital or a film camera, it sees as if everything was the same kind of luminance, bright or dark. And in the end, when we look around with our eyes, we can look into the shadows, then adjust very quickly to the bright parts, and that's something that I quite like to adjust, whether it's film or digital. I didn't do very much here, but just some subtle arrangements. Mainly these, can you see the reflections of the tree in the water? Well, I made them a little bit darker because I liked the way that they were contrasting against the water. Here we have another scene where you're starting to see some autumnal colors, some autumnal leaves at the side of the water, and I really like this white tree trunk just protruding out and kind of contrasting the white against the yellows of the leaves. And same as before, what I did is that I darkened the water a little bit because it was slightly too bright for my liking. And now we have this more slightly flat look of the whole picture, which is kind of, it's a very quiet kind of autumn scene as far as I'm concerned. Here's another version of the same photos before. I tried a square crop, and I also tried a vertical version where I show a little bit more of the water on the side. Maybe you can tell me in the comments which of the two versions you prefer. Another version this time with slightly stronger colors, a little bit more saturation, because that's the thing, once you convert your pictures you also have to see how you want to convert them exactly, because there's not one done and right conversion when it comes to digital scans and negatives. These are my first impressions about this roll of film that I shot in the Olympus Mju II. And let me know in the comments what your thoughts are, and if you have the Olympus Mju II. Maybe you have more experience than me if you've been taking photos with it for a few years. Do you have any tips for me? What are your thoughts about this camera? Actually, we could also talk about the Kodak. I'm sure that you noticed that there's a reason why it's called Kodak Gold. I find that a lot of the colors are quite warm with this film. It's interesting. So thanks for watching. I hope this was useful for you or interesting. See you next time. Have a good day. Bye bye.